The water ran red with ice. It was the winter solstice of 218 BC, and 40,000 Romans were dying. They were not dying from swords alone, but from the bitter, biting cold. Before the sun had even risen, the legionaries were wading chest-deep into a freezing trap. Numb limbs failed to hold shields, and hungry bellies cramped in the icy current. A fog hung low over the river, masking the slaughter that awaited on the far bank. The river held them fast, a white scar upon the land. For weeks, the only movement across this frozen expanse was the wind. This was not a battle. It was an extermination engineered by nature and genius. Rome demanded blood for Saguntum.
We must act now.
The Second Punic War had erupted, shattering the fragile peace of the Mediterranean.
Forward, great one!
Hannibal Barca had done the impossible, crossing the Alps with elephants and an exhausted army. He arrived in Italy not as a raider, but as a conqueror, seeking to break the Republic. Facing him was Consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus, a man driven by political ambition. With his term ending soon, Sempronius needed a glorious victory to secure his legacy. He saw the Carthaginian force as a tired band of barbarians, ripe for destruction. Impatience is a commander's sin. Hannibal knew this weakness and prepared to exploit the consul's hunger for glory. The Carthaginian army was tired, outnumbered and far from home, yet they held the initiative. While Rome gathered its strength, Hannibal sought to strike before the legions could fully unite. He needed to force a battle on his terms, transforming a defensive posture into an offensive trap. The Trebia River Valley, a frozen, unforgiving landscape that would soon run red with the blood of thousands, was. The stage was set, not for a clash of strength, but a test of minds. The terrain was the weapon. The battlefield lay flat and open, seemingly perfect for the Roman heavy infantry. To the west ran the Trebia River, swollen by rain and snow, an icy barrier. But the flat plain was a deception, hiding a fatal topographical detail. Hidden within the tall grass and scrub of a nearby ravine lay the battle's true hinge. Mago Barca, Hannibal's brother, lay in wait with 2,000 picked men, invisible to the Roman eye. Rome brought iron and discipline. Sempronius commanded the legions, a force of heavy infantry, unrivaled in frontal combat. Their Velite skirmishers were numerous, but outmatched by the range and skill of Hannibal's specialists. Hannibal fielded a polyglot force of Spanish infantry, Gallic allies, and lethal Numidian cavalry. His army was a flexible instrument of speed and deception, contrasting the rigid Roman bloc. Crucially, the Romans had not eaten. The Carthaginians were fed, warmed by fires, and oiled against the cold. This desolate strip, known only as no man's land, consumed men and hope alike. Victory was decided before the first sword was drawn. Dawn brought the sting of arrows. Before the Roman camp had fully stirred, the Numidian cavalry was already at the gates. They rode with a fluid, taunting grace, hurling javelins and insults of the sentries. It was a nuisance raid, a classic lure designed to provoke a temperamental commander. Sempronius, eager for his triumph, swallowed the bait whole and ordered the entire army forward. He did not wait for breakfast. He did not wait for the sun to warm the air. The Trebia was swollen with icy slush, rising chest-deep against the struggling legionaries. 40,000 men plunged into the freezing torrent, their tunics soaking up the glacial water. Thermal shock seized their muscles, sapping their strength before they even reached the far bank. They emerged on the western shore shivering, their hands too numb to firmly grip their pillar. Across the plain, Hannibal's men stood well-fed, warmed by fires, and bodies greased with oil. The cold claimed the legions, but the sons of Carthage found warmth in their resolve, their victory forged in fire. A frozen, starving giant was stumbling toward a warm, coiled viper. Lines closed in silence. The Roman velites, the light skirmishers, moved to screen the main advance. But their javelins were wet and heavy, their throwing arms stiff from the biting cold. Hannibal countered with Balearic slingers, whose stones cracked skulls with the force of a hammer. Outraged and overpowered, the Roman skirmishers were forced to retreat through their own heavy infantry. This retreat caused confusion, disrupting the maniples just as the main Carthaginian line advanced. Impact shook the frozen earth. The main bodies collided with a sickening crunch of wood, iron, and bone. Despite their physical misery, the Roman heavy infantry fought with terrifying discipline and grit. In the center, the legions began to grind forward, pushing back Hannibal's Gallic and Spanish infantry. Roman's center was a juggernaut, seemingly unstoppable even when freezing and starving. But Hannibal had never intended to win the battle in the center. The center was merely the anvil. As the cavalry wings curved like the horns of a bull, the trap was sprung. The geometry was ominous. While the Roman center pushed forward, their flanks were being systematically dismantled. The wings collapsed in blood. On the far left and right, the Roman cavalry was hopelessly outnumbered and outclassed. Hannibal's heavy horse charged, supported by the terrifying spectacle of war elephants. The scent of the great beasts sent the Roman horses into a frenzy of panic. The Roman cavalry broke and fled, leaving the infantry's flanks completely exposed to the wind and the enemy. Now, the Carthaginian cavalry turned inward, driving into the exposed sides of the Roman infantry block. Works was closing. The legions were now fighting on three sides, compressed into a dense, chaotic mass. The snow turns to red mud as the Numidians hurl javelins into the crowded ranks. Yet, the Roman center still pushed forward, blindly seeking to break the line in front of them. They were winning the melee in front, unaware that they were already dead. And then the silence broke. A sound that echoed not just through the valley, but through the hearts of every man who heard it. The final piece of the puzzle emerged from the earth itself. From the overgrown ravine behind the Roman line, 2,000 men suddenly stood up. Hannibal Barca's elite detachment screamed their war cries and charged the exposed Roman rear. The psychological shock was instantaneous. The Romans realized they were completely surrounded. The rear ranks disintegrated, cut down by fresh troops striking where they had no shields. What began as a battle dissolved into a chaotic slaughter in the freezing mud. The cohesion of the legions shattered, unit discipline replaced by the primal urge to survive. Men trampled each other to escape the killing jar, running back toward the icy river. But the Carthaginian cavalry and elephants were waiting to harvest the fleeing mob. Those who escaped the blade were forced back into the water. where hypothermia finished what the blade started. The river they once stepped into has become their grave, washing away the corpses in the present. The Ninth Legion, once the pride of Rome, now merely statues of bronze and blood, frozen in their final agony. Rome's ambition had been frozen, shattered, and drowned in a single afternoon. Silence returned to the river. The field is a bizarre mosaic of frozen mud, shattered shields, and stiff corpses. Of the 40,000 who had marched into the water, nearly 30,000 never returned. They lay in heaps, Roman and Gaul alike, united only by the cold that claimed them. The flower of the legion lay dead, not just defeated by superior tactics, but by their own commander's hubris. The Trebia River flowed on, indifferent to the empire, drowning in its currents, a remnant clawing its way out. In the center, 10,000 legionaries had managed to hack their way through Hannibal's line. They marched to the safety of Placentia, a hollow victory of survival amidst a catastrophe. But the strategic damage was absolute. The myth of Roman invincibility on Italian soil was shattered. Rome could no longer rely on brute force alone. They were fighting a ghost who turned their aggression into suicide. Panic swept through the capital as the reality of the invasion took hold. The Gauls saw the future. Seeing the Republic humbled, the hesitation of the local tribes vanished instantly. Thousands flocked to Hannibal's banner, providing the fresh manpower he desperately needed. The victory at Trebia secured his foothold in Italy, transforming an invasion into a revolution. Winter grants no truce to the fallen. Here lies the price of empire, slowly buried by time itself. Trebia was the proof that Rome could die, and that a master of war had arrived at her gates. The road to the south was now open, paved with the frozen bodies of the legions. But Trebia was merely the first lesson in terror. In the next analysis, we march into the mist of Lake Trasimene, where an entire army disappears in silence.